Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamiti Namine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamine Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Jivananda, I need my songbook. Nirvasesha Asunyavadi Astyachari Satarine Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvasesha Sunyavadi Astyachari Satarine Jaya Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gauravakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gauravakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Oh, Premanandi, Haribo, Hare Krishna, everybody, Hari Haribo. Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtata Satishay Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Anantakota Vaishnavrinda Ki Namacharya Shaharyasa Thakur Ki Prem Skoho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Ganga Maya Ki Yamuna Maya Ki Tulasi Deva Ki Bhakti Deva Ki Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Lord Chaitanya's Harinam Sankirtanam Ki Brihat Madanga Ki Srila Prabhupada Ki Shri Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Gaura Premanandi, oh gloriously assembled devotees, oh glorious to Sri Guru and Gauranga, oh glorious to Sri Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Vidaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhakti Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswate Devi Guruvacharya Devasesha Sanyavari Vastacharya Shakarine. Hare Krishna. Can you see me, Rasika?
Yes, Maharaj.
You can?
Yes.
Hare Krishna. Are you leaving or not? Om Jnana Timirandasya Kinanjana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Tapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Upagadamayam Tadati Shvapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuttaparakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sarvajatam Sahagana Vaganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sarvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Panamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Turubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Yay. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome everybody from different parts of the world this morning. Today we're going to be carrying on with the beginning of the prologue before the subject matter of teachings of Lord Chaitanya, various philosophical discussions of the Lord with some of his prime followers and some of the converts. And today we're going to be reading or hearing from, not reading from, hearing the Srila Prabhupada's prologue to this book, Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, which I assume that pretty much all of you have got, maybe read. It was, as we mentioned the other day, it was the first large book which Srila Prabhupada published in the Western world. It was published in 1968. And in 1968, Prabhupada wrote what we had the other day, the preface. And the prologue happens to be, it's very interesting. The prologue to this book is simply a little book, or the English version of a book which was published in 1896. And I'm just going to read the very words of Bhaktivinoda Thakur in regards to this book, which was sent in 1896 to various institutes in the Western world and scholars also. One copy was sent to Ralph Waldo Emerson, who actually requested Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Ralph Waldo Emerson was a famous American philosopher who was very interested in Indian or Asian philosophy. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur had been sending out some books like Krishna Samhita, but it was in Bengali or in Sanskrit. They were not in English at that time. They were sending them out to various, schools and educated people around the world. Ralph Waldo Emerson had written back saying that he appreciated the kind gift, but could it please be in English since he didn't read Bengali or Sanskrit. So then Bhaktivinoda Thakur put sent these prayers to Ralph Waldo Emerson and to others, universities and so on and so forth. And it was a book. The actual book was called Sri Gauranga Lila Smarana Mangala Stotram. And it was actually 104 Sanskrit verses. And what we're going to read now, or we're not going to read it, we're going to hear a little bit about it, is the English summary of those 104 Sanskrit verses, which forms this little book, Lord Chaitanya, His Life and Precepts. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur himself wrote at the beginning of that book, the object of this little book is to bring the holy life of Caitanya Mahaprabhu and his precepts to the notice of the educated and the religious people. Most of the books treating on these subjects have hitherto been printed in Bengali character. Hence the life and precepts of Chaitanya have scarcely passed beyond the boundaries of Bengal. This book has therefore been printed in Sanskrit types for circulation all over India. Our educated brethren of Europe and America have taken of late to the study of the Sanskrit language, and it is our belief that this brochure will go to their hands in a very short time. This book contains 104 shlokas with copious commentaries. It makes a succinct mention of all the anecdotes of the life of Mahaprabhu as related in the famous book, the Chaitanya Charitamrita by Krishnadas Kaviraj. The slokas form 75 to 86. The slokas from 75 to 86 inclusive will give an outline of the precepts of that great personage. With a view to help our English-knowing readers in going through the book, we have here summarized in English the contents of the work. It is at the request of some Vaishnavas that we have composed the Smarana Mangala verses in the form of a prayer for daily recitation at the time of worship. Signed, Kedarnath Dutt Bhaktivinod. So that was the introduction to this book, which forms in Srila Prabhupada's teachings of Lord Chaitanya, the prologue. And if you have your book, of course you can read. We're not going to actually read it. It's quite a long prologue. we will probably summarize it because it's very worthwhile summarizing. Very worthwhile to hear the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. As we know that by hearing of the pastimes of Lord Krishna, this is the actual medicine to cure the living entity of his materialistic condition disease. And even more so in Kali Yuga, to hear the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya is even more effective in this age of Kali. So I'm just going to, just as a little introduction, I'm just going to read here from the Caitanya Charitamrita, a little bit from Srila Prabhupada about the importance of hearing the pastimes of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Actually, this is from Caitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela, chapter 12, text number 94 and 95. The ocean, this is Krishnadas Kaviraj speaking, the ocean of the pastimes of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu is immeasurable and unfathomable. Who can take the courage to measure that great ocean? Cannot be measured because everything about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his pastimes is understood to be transcendental or spiritual. We just get a little drop of that great ocean. It is not possible to dip into that great ocean, but its sweet, mellow flavor attracts my mind. I therefore stand, I wonder if someone can ask them to correct it. I therefore stand on the shore of that ocean to try to taste but a drop of it. We're on the shore of that great ocean of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, to enter into that ocean, of course, by the special mercy of Lord Nityananda. We enter into the ocean of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes and teachings by the mercy of Lord Nityananda. We can't directly access that great ocean. And Lord Nityananda's mercy is made available by his pure representatives, who are the personification of that mercy of Lord Nityananda, spreading the message of Lord Chaitanya all over the world. And in order to get the mercy of Lord Nityananda's representatives, one has to go to the Jagais and Madhais and preach this message to others. And then Lord Nityananda is very pleased to bestow his mercy and consequently the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This we can hear in one of the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, famous pastime of the incident of Jagai and Madai in Navadvip, and how Lord Nityananda delivered the two rogues from their sinful activity. And not only that, but he also bestowed upon them the love of Godhead by his mercy. They received Lord Chaitanya's full mercy. And it's not just about hearing the pastimes, which is, of course, very good. Similarly, and as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, anyone hears this Bhagavad Gita with faith attains to higher planets, they become free to reactions and so on. But that's not all there is to it. We don't just want to hear it. We want to realize that text. We want to enter into it, apply it in our lives. The process of realization is also explained by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. Those who apply themselves to this knowledge realize this knowledge in due course of time. There is a process that we've just mentioned, some aspect of it. There is a process of attaining the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, so we can actually, not just, it's great to be stood on the shore of that great ocean of devotion, ocean of prema, which Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is revealing or giving access to. We need to enter into it. And the process of entering into it is also given in the Caitanya Charitamrita, that the process is Lord Chaitanya himself is described by Krishnadas Kaviraj as appear to relish that prema, that Krishna prema, that great ocean of love of Godhead. He's relishing that by the performance of Nat Sankirtan, congregational chanting of the holy name. This is the means by where we become eligible to enter into that great ocean by chanting the holy name. I'm going to read another quote here. Just give me a second. This we have. Devotees, the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya are unlimited. How much can a small living entity elaborate about those transcendental pastimes? If Sheshanaga Ananta, the form of the also Lord Nityananda's expansion,
in the material world who serves as the resting place of Lord Mahavishnu as well as the support of the universe. And he has, in the form of his support of Lord Mahavishnu, he has countless, and shared actually Vishnu also. He has countless hoods, countless hoods. No one can say how many hoods, how many heads he has, that form of Ananta Sesha, form of like a snake with many, many hoods. If you were personally to make the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya into codes, even with his thousands of mouths, there is no possibility that he could find their limit. They're absolutely unlimited. So Krishnadas Kaviraj said that devotees like Sri Swarup Damodar and Maharaja Gupta have recorded all the principal pastimes of Lord Chaitanya in the form of notes after deliberate consideration. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami took those notes and, based upon those notes of Swarup Damodar and Maharaja Gupta, compiled this Chaitanya Charitamrita. The first part of the life of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which is somewhat extensively described in this prologue, which Srila Prabhupada gives in the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, is not very extensively described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And the reason being is that Vrindavan Das Thakur, another commentator on the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, compiled what's called Chaitanya Bhagavata, a very extensive presentation of Lord Chaitanya's earlier pastimes, specifically those recorded by Maharaja Gupta in his diary. The later pastimes, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami had heard from Raghunath Das Goswami in Vrindavan. Raghunath Das Goswami was a personal associate of Swarup Damodar Goswami. So Raghunath had heard everything from Swarup Damodar directly, and had then spoken that in Vrindavan to the devotees, including Krishnadas Kaviraj, which he then put into the form of Chaitanya Charitamrita, along with notes from others who had the association of Lord Chaitanya. And in this case, especially in Kali Yuga, the importance of knowing Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, how to know Krishna. Well, without knowing Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, without understanding the unique position of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda, it is practically not possible to really enter into the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. There's a beautiful song in the songbook she hardly ever sings. It's called Shavarana Shri Gora Mahima. And just a little bit from the purport. It said that this is a song, beautiful song by Narottam Das. If one appreciates the merciful pastimes of Lord Chaitanya and feels ecstasy, sometimes cries, this process will immediately help him to understand the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, which are called Nitya Lila. The loving affairs between Radha and Krishna are not a temporary thing. Here in the material world, we can see loving affairs between boys and girls, but that is temporary. That is simply for a few months, a few years, maybe a little more. But then all that so-called love will go to hell. They're not permanent affairs. But if one really wants permanent love affairs, he must enter into the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. Simply by appreciating Lord Chaitanya's movement, one can immediately enter into or understand Radha Krishna's eternal pastimes. One who can understand the transcendental eternal pastimes of Radha Krishna reaches the highest perfectional stage of devotional service. So by the mercy of, just like in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Janma Karma Chamadivya, one who understands the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not take birth again in this material world, but attains to the transcendental spiritual abode. So understanding the pastimes of Radha Krishna is not easy. Just like we hear in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna's final instruction is surrender unto me. But that's not easy. Therefore, the Lord comes in this Kali Yuga in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu along with his associates to make the path of surrender accessible and easy compared to previous yugas at least, simply by the chanting of the holy names. And it's this Sankirtan of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu which enables one or gives one the eligibility to actually understand. Otherwise we get some reduced understanding or perverted understanding or no understanding at all of the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. We are not, and on top of that, we have eligibility to actually enter into them, not just some theoretical understanding, but actually the eligibility to enter into the rasa dance or enter into the leelas of the Lord. So I'm going to read now something. It's very interesting. This is from a book called Prema Vaivarta by one of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu's closest associates. When Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas in his 24th year, and then on the request of his mother, he based himself in Jagannath Puri. And when he was in Jagannath Puri, one of his closest associates, Janananda Pandit, and there's Gadadhar Pandit and Janananda Pandit. These two, known as Pandits, were also two of his closest associates who appeared with him to experience. Janananda Pandit was a little different. Gadadhar Pandit was very soft. Gadadhar Pandit was like the you could say the character, or the character of Chandravali. In the spiritual world, the two primary gopas, Radharani and Chandravali. So Chandravali appears in different forms. One of her specific form in Jagannath Puri appears in a very soft form of Gadadhar Pandit. There's a certain aspect of the nature, the characteristic of Chandravali. And an aspect of Radharani's character is a very, let's say, rather jealous and moody character, sometimes getting very angry, appeared at Jagadananda in the form of Jagadananda Pandit. But Jagadananda Pandit's love for Lord Chaitanya was so intense, unbreakable, totally unbreakable. So he put together this beautiful little book called Prema Vaivarta. I'm just going to read a little bit from this beautiful book. And when Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas and went to Jagannath Puri, there Jagadananda Pandit was also there, and they had many wonderful pastimes together there in Puri. So this is, let's see, where should we begin? Yes. Thus, Srimati Radharani and Lord Krishna entered into one transcendental form, which presently appears as my dear most Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu. And when I say presently, do not mistakenly judge this according to mundane time factor. This is one of the pitfalls, one of the shortcomings, which from the material point of view, we try to measure everything by time, and by space. We try to measure everything. And this is not possible to use this method to ascertain or understand the nature of the Absolute. It's impossible. It may serve to support in some cases, but it is not in itself capable or possible by that method of understanding the nature of Lord Chaitanya or the Absolute Truth. So people try to measure that. Who came first? Lord Chaitanya or Radha Krishna? So Jagannatha says, and when I say personally, do not mistakenly judge this according to the mundane time factor. Remember, the transcendental truth is beyond the influence of time. This is why we have so much difficulty, because we're under the influence of time. Understanding something which is eternal, something which is unlimited, is not within the scope of our limited capacity. And one has to rise above that to be able to, say, understand that in as much as we're needed to. Thus to say that Srimati Radharani and Lord Krishna appeared before Lord Chaitanya, who made his appearance recently, would be an attempt to impose material inebriaties like time and chronological order on them. This misconception will totally alienate us from the eternal truth. One could give a relative example of a sun. I mean, right now, I don't know wherever you are in Australia, I guess it's about, 6:30 in the evening or something, maybe 8:30, maybe in New Zealand, or Fiji. Maybe it's 2 o'clock in India. I don't know exactly, something like that. In America, you've got early morning, and in Europe, it's 10:30 or maybe 9:30, whatever. But that's just a relative designation of time. There's no time as such like that as far as the sun is concerned. It's just that to us, it appears to be 9:30 or 3:30 or whatever it is, because we're in a relative situation to the sun. But from the sun's perspective, the sun is always there. It's not morning or night. There's no morning or night exactly for the sun. So similarly for Krishna's pastimes are going on permanently. Lord Chaitanya's pastimes are permanent. And always going on, although it appears from our perspective that there is some chronology there. And it may be manifest to us in some kind of chronological way. But ultimately, all the pastimes there are going on eternally. May not be for our eye, but they're going on somewhere. Just like now here, for instance, in France, it's 10:30 something. And in a short while, it'll be 10:40, but somewhere else, because we meant our clocks to be every hour or something, but in terms of real time, it will be 10:30 somewhere else, and then it'll be 10:40 somewhere else, and it'll be 10:50 here. It's like that, it's just going on round and round. Time moves like that. And Krishna as being the controller of time as well as time being a manifestation of Krishna, time is eternal. So the pastimes of the Lord, which appear to us to be taking place in time, are only, you could say, manifest to us in time. But they're not controlled by time. They're above time. And they're above place. We say, oh, Krishna appears here. Well, he manifests it maybe in certain places, his pastimes in this plane, but his pastimes are actually unlimited. They're not limited to a certain space. They're wherever the heart is pure, wherever one has pure consciousness, the Lord reveals his pastimes. He reveals his presence. It could be any, physically speaking, anywhere, right in your home, in your office, in your bed, it could be anywhere. The Lord can manifest his full opulences as he wishes. That's like a special mercy of the Lord, that he appears in a certain place, and that place thus becomes a dham, a tirtha, Mayapur, Navadvip, where we can go and we can, get that extra special opportunity to awaken or to become eligible to enter into Krishna's understanding of Krishna and Krishna's pastimes. So then Janananda goes on. The word ekatma means an independent and individual soul. So if you consider that this word refers to Lord Chaitanya alone, it implies that Srimati Radharani and Lord Krishna appeared later than Caitanya Mahaprabhu. In the verse this is mentioned actually. And they have separated themselves eternally. Although Radha and Krishna are one, they have separated themselves eternally. Now these two transcendental identities have again united in the form of Sri Krishna Chaitanya. So it indicates originally they were one, and then they split into two, and then again, now they've gone back into one again. But that infers some kind of, beginning and end, you could say, at least a beginning, and everything has a beginning must have an end. The word ekatma, so it's not like that. Do not waste valuable time uselessly trying to debate who appeared first. Was it Srimati Radharani and Lord Krishna, or was it the son of Srimati Sachi Devi, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu? Earlier, I explained that everything is perfectly adjusted on the transcendental plane. Thus, be extra cautious before you enter into a debate about who appeared first, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu or Sri Krishna. The two qualities, namely simultaneity and eternality, are characteristic of the absolute reality, which finds full expression in transcendental truth. Uninterrupted spiritual pastimes are the supreme excellences of this transcendental truth. Uninterrupted spiritual pastimes. In the material world, they're interrupted, they appear to be, because we're under the influence of time and circumstance. But on the real platform, they're not interrupted. Just like when we were children, maybe we still are, maybe even now we have certain activities we wish we could just keep doing and not stop. But then time comes along and they get stopped. But we would like them to carry on forever, playing or whatever it is, enjoying ourselves, something, being in a certain beautiful place. We wish we could be there forever, or with a certain person. But in the material world, which is full of inebriaties under the influence of time, everything comes to an end. And thus we are not able to experience that uninterrupted ecstasy, that uninterrupted pleasure which we're gaining from some temporary material situation. In the spiritual world, everything is uninterrupted. The pleasure-giving potency, Ladini potency, in the spiritual world, simultaneously shelters two truths. One is pranaya, or loving exchange, and the other is vikara, transformation of that love. It means the various pastimes which take place between Radharani and Krishna. That transcendental potency has now appeared in the material world in the form of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu. He roams along the bank of the Ganges, constantly performing congregational chanting of the holy name of God. The pastimes of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu are even more ecstatic than the pastimes of Lord Sri Krishna. In Lord Chaitanya's Leela, the loving exchanges reach their quintessence. When this love achieved excessive heights, Ladini, or the pleasure potency of the Lord, embraced Krishna with feelings of great ecstasy and covered him with the mood and luster of Srimati Radharani. This is the mood of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Krishna appearing in his full manifestation as Caitanya Mahaprabhu came to his own abode, Navadvip Dham, where he felt a much greater pleasure than in Vrajadam. He appeared in Navadvip to fulfill the specific purpose of his incarnation and to relish his heart's desire. For these two general reasons why Lord appears in this form of Caitanya Mahaprabhu in this world. He's eternally present in that form, in the spiritual realm, but he manifests that form within this world for these two primary reasons. One, to fulfill the mission of this particular yuga, to spread the yuga dharma and give everyone a chance to awaken their love of God. And the other was himself. In that form, he relishes the mood or the feelings of Srimati Radharani in her love for Krishna. In other words, it's Krishna himself desiring to experience the loving emotions of Radharani. So being so absorbed in those loving emotions, not emotions, but in the desire to attain or to experience those loving emotions, the mood of Radharani, he becomes covered by that mood. Krishna becomes covered by the mood of Radharani. And thus, he's experiencing this highest ecstasy of Mahabhav, which is experienced by Srimati Radharani alone. In the form of Caitanya Mahaprabhu, everything is there. It's a complete form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For different purposes, he expands himself to experience different forms of loving exchange or the arrangement of Vladimir Shakti. We're going to read a little bit more now. This is from also the same book, from Prema Vairata. Any person, even though born in Bengal, will never feel attraction in his heart for the transcendental name, pastimes, and abode of Sri Krishna, if he does not take shelter of the transcendental form, name, ecstatic pastimes, and sublime abode of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu first. So first we have to take shelter of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu. That's why Srila Prabhupada, particularly in our ISKCON movement, Srila Prabhupada describes how important it is to take shelter of the holy names of Lord Chaitanya, Gauranga. This is in the Chaitanya Charitamrita Adilila chapter 8, text 31. But if one only chants with some slight faith the holy name of Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda, very quickly he is cleared of all offenses. Thus, as soon as he chants the Hare Krishna mantra, he feels the ecstasy of love of God. This is how we take shelter of Lord Chaitanya also. We chant Panchatattva Mahamantra. Prabhupada writes in the purport, in our Krishna conscious movement, our students are first advised to worship Guru Gauranga. And that, practically speaking, that doesn't even necessitate the deities of Gauranga. It's it can be a picture of Panchatattva and the Guru Parampara. That is sufficient. Guru Gauranga altar, which is how, in most cases, Prabhupada started. If he started any preaching center anywhere, temples, started with Guru Gauranga altar, a picture of Panchatattva, maybe you have Radha Krishna, but specifically Panchatattva, and the Guru Parampara pictures. That's called Guru Gauranga altar. And in homes, this is how we should start. Sometimes we maybe, perhaps because of tradition, born in a family that devotees of Krishna or some Ram or somebody, some form of Krishna, we may be worshipping deities as such. But if we really start properly, we start with Guru Gauranga altar until one's ready to proceed on to worshipping, you could say, different forms of Krishna. We're not so easily approachable in one sense. For an ordinary man, worship of Caitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu or the Panchatattva is easier than worship of Radha and Krishna. Unless one is very fortunate, he should not be induced to worship Radha and Krishna directly. A neophyte student who is not sufficiently educated or enlightened should not indulge in the worship of Sri Radha and Krishna, or even in the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, which is very interesting, Prabhupada says here. Even if he does so, he cannot get the desired result. What it means is that one who is offensive, committing offenses either in worship or in chanting the holy name will not get the desired result. Then, Prabhupada said, one should therefore chant the names of Nitai Gaur and worship them without false prestige. Since everyone within this material world is more or less influenced by sinful activity, in the beginning it is essential that one take to the worship of Guru Gauranga and ask their favor. For this, thus, despite all of his disqualifications, one will very soon become qualified to worship the Radha Krishna Vigraha. By the mercy of Gauranga, worship of mercy of Panchatattva, one can become eligible to worship Radha and Krishna. This is why probably even in the deity worship or in home worship, whatever it may be, emphasize first Guru Gauranga worship. Very quickly, Prabhupada said one can become eligible if one follows it properly. And similarly, when we chant Hare Krishna, Prabhupada then said, it should be noted in this connection that the holy names of Lord Krishna and Gaur Sundar are both identical with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, one should not consider one name to be more potent than the other. Considering the position of the people of this age, however, the chanting of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's name is more essential than the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, because Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu is the most magnanimous incarnation and his mercy is very easily achieved. Therefore, one must first take shelter of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu by chanting Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar, Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. By serving Gaur Nityananda, one is freed from the entanglements of material existence and thus becomes qualified to worship the Radha Krishna deity. It's very important, the mood in our service, worshipping Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and performing Sankirtan, Guru Gauranga, etc., helps us to develop the correct mood. Otherwise, pride and various other anarthas, offensive mentality, etc., prevent us from progressing in our spiritual life. Even we may be worshipping Radha Krishna, Sita Ram, or Lakshmi Narayan, or any form of the Lord. As long as this offensive or sinful nature is there, and we cannot properly progress. Bahujama Kariyari Shravana Kirtana. It may take many lifetimes of chanting, but as long as one is offensive, one will not attain the desired goal. But by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, it becomes easily attained. We have to really take shelter of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission, his mood. in chanting the holy names, therefore we chant Sri Krishna Chaitanya, the Panchatattva mantra first. Even though we may still have anarthas and offensive tendencies, the Lord, out of his causeless mercy, will still enable us or help us to make progress in spiritual life. We'll carry on. Janananda Pandit in another section describes here eagerness to see Lord Gauranga. You have to be eager. Oh, my Lord, Gauranga, I am to be deprived of the association of your lotus feet because I wish to go to Sri Vrindavan. Monica's phone. Just give me a second. Marcus fallen. Thrice I do confirm it, my brothers. Worship Lord Gauranga. Lord Gauranga is the original spiritual master of this entire cosmic manifestation. If you sincerely desire to worship Lord Gauranga, then purify your mind and become free from the tendency to find fault and criticize others. In this manner, take shelter of the lotus feet of Lord Gauranga. Simply telling the world, I am Lord Chaitanya's servant, will not suffice. I think in the Bible it says something like that too. Those who swear on my name or preach on my name or something, but don't follow, are not really my followers at all. It's not just saying, yes, I am a follower of so-and-so, and I actually be a follower. Real success in devotional service comes when one takes to heart the life and teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Making an external show of worshipping Lord Chaitanya by keeping the appearance of a devotee, wearing tilak, tulsi mala, etc., but secretly committing sins, then Lord Gauranga will certainly discover such cheating and deception. So by such practice, one can become degraded rather than elevated. Of course, there's another side to that we may have anarthas, we may have tendencies from sinful life, but one is honest. One is not trying to be duplicitous, putting on a show of being a pure devotee, but in the heart, cultivating all kinds of anarthas, all kinds of ulterior motives, etc., etc. Putting oneself ahead of Lord Chaitanya, trying to see oneself as the authority, and so on. There's a long section describing that, but we won't deal with that now. In this little book, there's a very beautiful emphasis in a section dealing with the importance of chanting the holy name, but we're not going to read it today, and how important it is to chant in the mood which Lord Chaitanya has given us, this Sankirtan mood. The Sankirtan mood is not a mood of just trying to enjoy ourselves. It's actually the process of pleasing Krishna. It's the process of spreading Krishna consciousness throughout the world. By absorbing everyone, Lord Chaitanya's associates appeared in this world specifically to give everyone a chance to enter into that pastime, which we've heard is even more relishable than Braj Leela. Everyone a chance to enter into those transcendental pastimes of Navadvip Dawn and taste, as stated in Chaitanya Charitamrita, to taste the four loving exchanges with the Lord, because through the performance of Sankirtan, when performed purely and selflessly, then one's natural attraction towards serving Radha and Krishna can be awoken within the heart. We'll just hear a little bit, because to hear the pastimes of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu is the most, let's say, relishable, most simple, purifying. And just like Krishna's pastimes, when we hear those pastimes, removal of the attachments to this world, the anarthas which are in our heart, and on the other positive side, one becomes attracted to Krishna. Similarly, by hearing the pastimes of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu, many of which, as in Krishna's Leela, are directly related to particular anarthas, And Lord Chaitanya, again, even there has made it simpler. For instance, when he was in childhood pastimes, like many young boys, if they don't get what they want, they throw a tantrum and they start smashing things. Lord Chaitanya was, the original in this regard. He was very prolific, very famous for throwing tantrums and smashing everything in the house when he didn't get what he wanted, whatever it was. He wanted to go to the Ganga. Mother Sachi, his mother, would prevent him from going, or he wanted a puppy dog, or whatever it was, and then Sachi Devi would prevent him or take away the puppy dog. Lord Chaitanya would sometimes go into fits, into, tantrums, tremendous tantrums, and start smashing everything in the house to pieces. Everything, the doors, everything smashed. He would never smash his mother, however, but he would smash everything else. And this is described, this pastimes of here, and these type of pastimes of Lord Chaitanya's, tantrums, etc., is the pastime which smashes the anarthas within our heart. It's the equivalent of Krishna's pastimes when he smashed a pot of yogurt or smashed various demons, etc. He's breaking our attachments, breaking our anarthas, etc., and which is required. Before we can genuinely enter into the Leelas, we have to be purified in heart. We can't enter into Vrindavan as long as the heart is contaminated by material desire. So we have to become free of material desire. If we want to enter into the realm where there is no material desire, if we want to enter sun, we have to become like fire. So to enter into Vrindavan Dham, the internal Navadvip Dham also, we have to become pure, completely pure. So these pastimes which Lord Chaitanya displays from his birth to his departure are all transcendentally purifying, no matter what pastime it is, understand it or not, like it or not. They're all purifying, and each one of them may be dealing with philosophical anarthas, just like in teachings of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu, dealing with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who was a great logician, was a great teacher of Nyaya and Sanskrit and so on, grammar. He was a very educated scholar, most educated amongst all the scholars. But he was very attached, and his conclusion was, everything's one. Ultimately, everything is just Brahman. Only a partial understanding of the absolute truth. Although Chaitanya smashed that anartha. Similarly with the Mayavadis in Varanasi, who were out and out. I mean, the Mayavadis, they were impersonalists, but Mayavadis are actually envious of Krishna. So that pastime can smash our envy of the Lord. How? By Lord Chaitanya's manifestation of absolute humility, as well as, of course, philosophical presentation, but primarily a position of total humility and dependence upon the mercy. Even he described there to those sannyasins of Varanasi that actually they thought he was a sentimental fool because he was simply dancing and singing and associating with similar sentimental fools, but he was not associating with the learned Vedantists of Varanasi or Benares. So they were thinking this man is a fool. He's just a sentimental fool. They didn't take him seriously. He should be studying the Vedas, not jumping around like a madman. But they were like that. But eventually, by the arrangement of the Lord and one of his devotees there in Varanasi, the Lord came into the association of these great sannyasis, and there he took a very humble role. And they could see that he was indeed, when Lord Chaitanya came there, must be himself, Narayan, because he was so fortunate. So they begged him to please come into their association, discuss the Vedanta. They came in, but Lord Chaitanya said, I'm a fool. I don't know anything about these things. My spiritual master has told me I cannot understand anything. I'm not qualified. He just told me, just chant Hare Krishna. That's the only thing. But then they did discuss Vedanta, and Lord Chaitanya soundly defeated them on Vedanta too, but they accepted him because of his pure humility, selfless humility. So this is, of course, something we may wish we had, but we may not feel we have at the moment, and probably don't have. But by the worship of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu here in these pastimes, there's more chance that we will awaken these pure qualities of the soul. So right from the birth, hearing about the birth of Caitanya Mahaprabhu, like the birth of Lord Krishna, helps us to become free of birth in this material world. It helps us to become free of the attachments too. I mean, babies and the whole idea of raising children, etc., is extremely binding us in this material world. We become extremely bound up with attachments therein. But by hearing the loving exchanges between Sachi Devi and Gaura Hari, when we become freed of all these identifications and attachments. And to read the name, we become very attached to a name, our place of birth, this, that, the other. So we become attached to Mayapur. We become attached to the names of Lord Chaitanya. When he was born of Mother Sachi Devi in 1486 in Mayapur, and Jagannath Mishra, his father, he was given the name Vishwambar. He was the controller of the universe, practically speaking, protector of the universe. So he got the name Vishwambar. But he also got other names. The ladies there in Mayapur, they gave him the name Gaurahari, golden form, because his complexion was golden. And Mother Sachi gave him the name Nimai, because she gave birth to him underneath a neem tree. And neem trees are there to protect us from negativity, ghosts, and this and that, negative influences. So she gave him the name Nimai. Later on, he became Nimai Pandit, because he became a great Pandit, scholar himself. Before he manifested his ecstatic Sankirtan movement and his absorption in prema. He was absorbed in prema, but he wasn't revealing it to the world. He was performing his childhood pastimes as a scholar. And then as a teacher, he had his own school with his own students. And he was defeating everyone, even the greatest scholar of the time, Digbijay in Kashmir. They were all defeated by him in debate. He was undefeatable by anyone in Navadvip, which was a major seat of learning. Lord Chaitanya was undefeatable because he is the source of all knowledge. And he's just playing. It's described that these were his childhood pastimes, just like he was playing with his coward boyfriends in Braj. In Navadvip, he was playing with those same coward boys in scholarly pastimes. He was enjoying it, debating with others. It was fun. It was like killing demons. A lot of fun for the Lord, and relishing interactions with his eternal associates who appeared as various cowherd boys, as various schoolboys there in Navadvip or in Mayapur. So the same pastime, just different mood. And the Lord relishing different aspects of transcendental ecstasy. Even when he was a child, he performed many miraculous acts performing pastimes with various thieves who came to try to steal away those jewelry, and how he tricked them and brought them back to the same place they came from, and so on and so forth. How he knew that Hiranya and Jagadish were offering on Ekadashi. They were making offerings of grains, and he asked it from a long distance. He asked him, please bring those offerings, and so many things which he performed as a child, right from the word go. As soon as he would purposely cry and cry, so that he would get everyone to chant. When he was born, also everyone was chanting when he appeared, because it was a full moon. He appeared on the Purnima, and on the full moon, everyone was chanting the holy name of Krishna at that moment. Why? Because suddenly there was a big eclipse. Rahu suddenly covered the moon, saying, what is the use of the moon, which is full of pockmarks, when the Supreme Lord himself has appeared in this world, the spotless Lord has appeared in this world. Let me cover the moon. So when he covered the moon, Rahu did a great service, and immediately everyone started to chant the holy name, because generally speaking, at least in India, eclipses of the moon are considered to be rather inauspicious, to say the least. So everyone started chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, different names of Krishna. The whole world was full of people chanting Krishna's names, bringing about auspiciousness to the whole world. And whenever Lord Chaitanya as a child, Nimai would cry, all the ladies would come and chant the names of Krishna, he would stop. So simply by hearing this pastime, we're always in anxiety in this world, crying over various things, frustrations, anxieties, whatever it may be. different stress that we have. And we're supposed to, the idea of this is that we then we'll call on the name of Krishna, call his names. So remembering this pastime, we can also remember to chant Hare Krishna when we're in distress. We can go on and on through the various pastimes of the Lord as a child, removing various misconceptions, various anarthas, etc. And when he grew a little older, we just heard he became very scholarly and so on. And then at a certain time, his parents decided they would get him married because his younger brother, Vishwarup was, his elder brother, Vishwarup, both Vishwarup and Vishvambar, or Chaitanya, were going sometimes to the nearby house of Advaita Acharya. Advaita Acharya also had a house in Mayapur, actually, as well as in Shantipur. And many times he would come there, and Vishvambar and Vishwarup would go there to associate with Advaita, and Advaita would teach them various aspects of knowledge, Vedanta, and so on, Krishna consciousness. And Vishwarup, when Lord Chaitanya was a very young boy, maybe 12 years old, Vishwarup decided to leave home and go away. He just left, went away supposedly to take sannyas, and left household life forever. His parents wanted to get him married, so Vishwarup decided, no, I'm leaving. And he just left and went away to the renounced order. So naturally, Lord Chaitanya's parents were very, very much disturbed, very much affected by that. Lord Chaitanya, Lord Hari, consoled his parents, but in order to, out of fear that he would also go away, they got him married to a beautiful young girl in Navadvip named Lakshmi Priya. And when Lord Chaitanya was only a young boy, maybe 14, 15 years old, and she was even younger, and that was the tradition in those days. And he went away after a short while to East Bengal to, now he's a Grihastha. He had to get some earnings, so he went there as a scholar, he went there to teach, but primarily he went there for other reasons, to spread Krishna consciousness. And he also amassed some wealth, not that he needed to do that, it was just part of his pastimes. And there he also met there Tapana Mishra, who was born in a very lowly family. He sent him, please go to Varanasi because I will be enacting pastimes there in the future, and I want you to be there to be ready when I come. So he sent Tapana Mishra to Varanasi, and then Lord Chaitanya returned back to Navadvip, back to Mayapur. In the meantime, Lakshmi Priya, his first wife, left her body, just a little girl, practically speaking, by a snake bite. But as he understood, it's a snake bite of separation. It's more than a snake bite from a little snake, but the snake bite of separation from her life and soul. She's the eternal consort of the Supreme Personality of Godhead herself. So she couldn't tolerate association for whatever period, a few months, whatever it was. So when he came back, then those things were very difficult, you could say, in that sense. Mother Sachi was really devastated, and so on and so forth. And then Lord Chaitanya, Gaura Hari's father, passed away, another devastating event. And then again, Lord Chaitanya got married to Vishnu Priya, another of his eternal associates. And very young, he's just 15, 16 years of age. He was married again, and after a while, in Navadvip, one great devotee had visited Navadvip, Ishwara Puri, and had given association to everyone in Mayapur, etc. And Lord Chaitanya, Gaura Hari, decided on the excuse of performing Binda for his departed father. He then left Navadvip for a while and went to what is it called? Bihar, Gaya. He went to Gaya, the place where most people go if they can to perform Pinda or various offerings for their forefathers, etc., the wealth for their forefathers. Well, he went there, not really on for that reason, but he really went there because Ishwara Puri was basing himself there. So he went there to meet Ishwara Puri, and to take shelter of Ishwar Puri. Although Lord Chaitanya is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the source of all knowledge, and he himself took initiation from Ishwar Puri. And he took shelter of it. And we've already heard of his spiritual master Ishwar Puri called him a fool and has given him this Mahamantra. We cannot understand the Vedanta. We simply chant this Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So from that moment onwards, Caitanya Mahaprabhu was just a teenager, whatever, 18 or so. He was a madman. He then manifested his real, you could say, real inner sentiments of a love of Godhead in the highest form. And when he returned to Mayapur, before that, he was a bit of a, they would call him a wrangling pandit. He would torment the Brahmins and other residents of Mayapur and Navadvip in various ways. He seemed to be very proud, sometimes in his behavior and so on. But now he came back as an emblem of humility, serving everybody. No matter who they were, he was like serving them and crying day and night in ecstasy and love of God. People thought that maybe he's gone completely mad. What has happened to this scholar? What has happened to Nimai Pandit? He's gone crazy. They would try to treat him with some kind of, sometimes epilepsy or some imbalance of the ears or some ghost or whatever it may be has haunted him. Nobody knew what had gone on. Such a transformation had taken place. Of course, it was just a manifestation of his inner moods. Nothing had really changed. It just wasn't visible before. So that point of initiation is also an important step in our devotional service. Depends on how we take it, or how we take it seriously or not. So Lord Chaitanya showed complete faith, or he himself is the name, but he showed for everyone else to take complete faith in the holy name of Krishna, totally depending upon Krishna as our only shelter. Even though he was a grihasta, he was just completely absorbed day and night in chanting the holy name of Krishna and the association of devotees. All night they would have kirtan in the house of Srivas Thakur or Chandrasekhar or somebody's house all night long. Kirtan would go on. And during the day they would go out on Nagar Kirtan around the villages chanting the holy names of Krishna. There was no time to sleep. There was no, just like in Krishna's pastimes. The Lord's pastimes are going on 24 hours. Caitanya Mahaprabhu also had his we have the Astakaliya Leela of Lord Krishna. There's also a similar sequence of pastimes in Caitanya Mahaprabhu's life, but we don't hear much about it. Basically, it was centered around Sankirtan and the association of his devotees. And this was going on. Many, many pastimes related there in the performance of Sankirtan and how many devotees came into those pastimes. Not to speak of Srivas Thakur, even Haridas Thakur, and so many great personalities who were the Lord's eternal associates who appeared in this world to assist in, also entered into the Sankirtan pastimes with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then in his 24th year, he decided that now is the time to take Krishna consciousness in a different way, or to spread it in a different way. He's relishing in their pastimes with his devotees in Mayapur and anyone around. Was getting the good fortune, but now he thought, now is the time to take it to the greater world. So he made what we would see as a very radical move as a 23, 24-year-old young man with a wife, no children, a mother without his father. He decided he would take the sannyas order of life. There were various impetuses of his taking sannyas, especially the impudence of many of the students in Navadvip were not accepting him because they just saw him, just like many people saw Krishna as an ordinary person, although he was Supreme Lord. In Navadvip also they were seeing Lord Chaitanya as an ordinary person, just a very learned scholar, but he's material. They were seeing him materially, so, and they weren't showing respect. So Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu decided he would take sannyas because even the Mayavadis, the scholars, everyone respects a sannyasi. So then it would be easier for them to, advance in Krishna consciousness. So he accepted the order of sannyas from Keshava Bharati, and we heard earlier, he based himself in Jagannath Puri, and he pastimes on the way are there, very relevant ones, both in Shantipur and in Raimuna, On the way to Jagannath Puri, many wonderful pastimes took place where the Lord reveals various aspects of pure devotional service, which cleanse our hearts of various anarthas and awaken faith within our hearts, enthusiasm within our hearts, attraction within our hearts, etc. And when he was in Jagannath Puri, after a short time after delivering Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Lord Chaitanya was known as Sri Krishna Chaitanya from sannyas onwards. He then traveled in South India, all over South India. He went Sri Rangam, Kurmakshetra, Pandharpur, and so many places in South India, spreading the holy names of Krishna everywhere he went, and awakening love of Krishna within people's hearts everywhere, just by his presence. So this is the pure Sankirtan of the holy name. The Sankirtan of the holy name, this congregational chanting, this is the method. Lord Chaitanya taught personally in Navadvip. He also taught in his journey in South India. And just by absorbing ourselves in Naga Sankirtan, that people's love of Godhead, and we may not be on that same potent level as Lord Chaitanya when he traveled through the forests of Jarikanda, how even the animals' love of Godhead was awoken, and they also started chanting Krishna's name. We can't expect that. It may happen if Krishna wills, but at least we can plant that seed in people's hearts. So the beginning of their pure devotional service, the start of their pure devotional service takes place. And this is the effect of congregational chanting. Everyone who sees the congregational chanting party, every living entity who comes in contact with the congregational chanting, even inert, those non-moving living entities, what is like trees and plants and conscious stones, everything gets the benefit of the Sankirtan movement. Of course, the more the purity is there, the more potency is there, the more effect is there by the grace of the Lord. And Lord Chaitanya, this was his mission, how to spread the Krishna consciousness in this age of Kali. And imagine if you go on the street of a big city like London, New York, Paris, Sydney, wherever you are, whatever big town or city is nearby, India, Bombay, wherever it is, hundreds, thousands, maybe millions of people come in contact with the Sankirtan. Hear the name or see the devotees, take some book, whatever it is, but some contact is there. That means it's the beginning. They awaken all the continuation of their spiritual lives. It's such a major effect on their consciousness because that impression stays with them. When one leaves the body, that impression is there. There's a great welfare movement spreading the Krishna consciousness through Sankirtan, through congregational chanting of the holy names. So Lord Chaitanya was doing that throughout South India. He even said he met Tukaram in Pandharpur, and Tukaram then embraced the same principle of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan and became a great preacher of congregational chanting of the holy name. He was a great devotee of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu, the famous Tukaram of Maharashtra. And of course in Sri Rangam, many of the Sri Sampradaya also, they came to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Many of them became intimate followers like Gopal Bhatta. Goswami was from the Sri Sampradaya, and others became very intimate followers of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And the Kurma Purana in Kerala, and so on, various statements of Brahma Samiti, found it there in the temple in Kerala. And many things took place in his journey in South, delivering of the meeting of Ramananda Roy on the banks of the Godavari at Kovur was a very significant meeting with his eternal associate, Ramananda Roy, who appeared to be in a low-class family by birth, but was engaged by King Prataparudra of Orissa as one of his governors in that district of what is now Andhra Pradesh, I guess. He was many hours, days discussing with Lord Chaitanya the highest. That's one of the discussions and teachings of Lord Chaitanya, the highest forms of pure love of Godhead. So then eventually Lord Chaitanya returned back to Puri after several years. And we hear all the wonderful pastimes about Rath Yatra. This Rath Yatra is one of the most powerful, important maybe the most important festival of the Krishna consciousness movement, is the festival of unity. It's a festival of unification, of bringing us all on our path to Vrindavan Dham. Especially for devotees, this Rath Yatra festival is so important, so wonderful festival of absorbing ourselves in the real mood of service to Radharani and bringing Krishna back to Vrindavan. Anyone who takes part in this gets that benefit, even if they just see it from a distance. Everyone gets tremendous benefit from Srimati Radharani showers her mercy on anyone who even sees the Rath Yatra. It's so important. We have to take this Rath Yatra to every town and village, just like in Auckland, the devotees in Auckland, in New Zealand, and on the Gold Coast in Australia. The devotees are having Rath Yatras here and there and everywhere they can. It's the most wonderful program of giving eligibility to persons like ourselves who are not really eligible, just by seeing a Rath Yatra card, or Lord Jagannath on the card. In England also, so many, this year, coronavirus, normally 30, 40 Rath Yatras a year in England. In Malaysia, which is a Muslim government, and there they allow us. They don't have any problems. They're very, very, in that sense, very wonderful. They're like Chankazi almost. That's a wonderful pastime, of course, in Navadvip, which took place after Lord Chaitanya took initiation of Chankazi, and how Lord Chaitanya organized the first social disobedience movement. Where non-violent, of course, they're just peacefully chanting the holy name. Someone got a little bit riled up, but basically a peaceful demonstration against the prohibiting of Sankirtan. So, Chankazi. So in Malaysia also, the government there, they're very fortunate. They allow Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement to go on, and Rath Yatra goes on in 30 or 40 cities a year in Malaysia every year, normally. Very wonderful. Muslims, everyone takes part. Very wonderful. Bringing people together. Lord Jagannath is so kind, Lord of the universe. Rath Yatra is like that. Lord Chaitanya is in the mood of Radharani, and Jagannath is Krishna. So this is tug and war going on, stopping and starting. Come to Vrindavan, and Radharani is pulling, and his associates pulling and pushing to bring Jagannath back to Vrindavan. And it's another pastime altogether. So that Rath Yatra was there. And then the Lord decided he wanted to go off to Vrindavan Dham. And in the meantime, of course, there was the deliverance of King Prataparudra, and the associates, his associates from Bengal, would come for the Rath Yatra in Puri. Ecstatic pastimes would take place. And then he intentionally went to Vrindavan, but he didn't make it. He only reached Kanai on his journey to Vrindavan, and then returned to Puri. But on the way, he met, at least in the area of Goda, now Bengal, he met his two eternal associates, Rupa and Sanatan, Goswamis, and their reunification, so to speak, took place. They became two of his leading disciples later on. Lord Chaitanya did actually go to Vrindavan. He returned to Puri and again went on a journey to Vrindavan, this time through the Jarikhand forest, when he delivered the animals and so on, with his assistant Balabhadra Bhattacharya. And in Vrindavan, wonderful pastimes took place. Maybe not so much revelation of those pastimes, very intimate. And on his way back from Vrindavan, he met Rupa Goswami in Prayag, and Rupa Goswami was on the way to Vrindavan, having retired from his ministerial position in the government of King Hussein Shah, in Muslim king, and Rupa Goswami and Sanatan were ministers in his government. So Rupa Goswami retired and went to Vrindavan, but met Lord Chaitanya in Prayag, and there Lord Chaitanya instructed him in the science of devotional service, which forms the first chapter of this teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and consequently the nectar of devotion. Lord Chaitanya gave him instructions to write extensively on the science of bhakti, which he did in so many books. And then later on that same return leg, by then Sanatan Goswami had also retired from his escaped from the jail which he was thrown into, met Lord Chaitanya in Varanasi, And again, there Lord Chaitanya stayed there at that time. He delivered Prakashananda Saraswati, one of the major conversations and teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and also Sanatana Goswami. He instructed him there in Varanasi, also in the science of devotional service. That is also a major part of teachings of Lord Chaitanya. And then Lord Chaitanya returned to Puri, and then for much of his last 12 or more years in Puri, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very much more internal with his very, very intimate associates, Sri Damodar and Ramananda Roy, and they would spend day and night absorbed in hearing and chanting about Krishna in seclusion, sometimes in the Gambhira in Kashi Mishra's house. And of course, he would come out as well, and pastimes were there, various prasadam pastimes, or pastimes in the ocean, pastimes with his devotees like Haridas Thakur and Gadar Pandit and Janananda Pandit and Ramananda Bharati and so many great devotees who came there to assist the Lord, or let's say, to be a part of the Lord's pastimes, where he could relish the intention, the inner intention of his appearing at that time in this particular form in this world. And then eventually he decided to unwind his pastimes and leave us with the great fortune of having Caitanya Charitamrita, summarized teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and Chaitanya Bhagavat, Chaitanya Mangala, and so many other accounts of his wonderful pastimes to cleanse our hearts, purify our consciousness, and awaken love of Godhead by giving us the eligibility. We may or may not take advantage of it, but giving us the opportunity to become eligible to enter into a loving relationship with Radha and Krishna, or Krishna, whatever form that one is attracted in our purified state. So we have to, if we really want to attain that, this is the Acharyas have made it clear that we have to go through this process of worshipping Guru and Gauranga by following the mercy of Lord Nityananda and doing our best to become an instrument to spread Krishna consciousness, be Krishna conscious as we can and spread that to others. As Lord Chaitanya told on his journey in South India, Yara Dekatala Kala Krishna Pradesh, we tell everyone, as you have heard from Srimad Bhagavatam, we try to engage others in devotional service. Very sweet to hear these pastimes. Next session we'll be doing Sikshastakam, the 8 prayers personally compiled by Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu, which form the foundation, the basis of our Krishna consciousness movement. Most essential prayers for those who wish to develop pure love of Godhead. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Ki Jai, Mantraj Jaivan, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Ki Jai, Gaur Premanandi, Hare Krishna. Okay, well, any questions? Where are we? Any questions? It's kind of an unusual time of the year to talk about Lord Chaitanya, but not so unusual because in a few days' time is Radhastami. And even Radharani, to get Radharani is none other than Lord Chaitanya's mood, manifested in the form of Caitanya Mahaprabhu. But to get that mercy of Radharani, we get the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. She makes herself accessible also in this way by appearing as Caitanya Mahaprabhu. She's the ocean of mercy, which appears in the Sankirtan movement. There's a question here from our host, I think. I don't know. I won't say who it's from. The Prabhupada said 90% of our advancement is dependent on chanting. If yes, please elaborate on this statement. While chanting, can we meditate on qualities of Krishna, 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita? Oh, okay, that's not from the host, it's from someone else, but it is private. I guess it's private. It's okay. Well, Prabhupada said many things in different places. If you hear many things in devotees' testimonies, etc., 90% of your advancement is depending upon chanting. Well, it's Yugadharma. It really, our whole advancement in Krishna consciousness or the awakening of Krishna consciousness depends wholly and solely on the mercy of Krishna. You can't pin it down to this or that. It is just simply the mercy of Krishna. So how we get the mercy of Krishna, that depends. I'll give you an example. One godbrother in Vrindavan, his name was Vibhu Chaitanya. He was the elderly Indian devotee. He joined maybe in his 50s. He retired, became initiated by Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada gave him the instruction. He gave him the instruction. He said, you don't need to chant your rounds. I just want you to cook all day for Radha Shyama Sundar. And he cooked 4 to 5 offerings every day for decades for Radha Shyama Sundar. We get, we may think, oh, that's enough, once a day, I've done my bit. He would cook 4 or 5 a day and cook the milk sweets for the deities. All day long cooking. That was his service. Baba didn't say you had to chant 16 rounds or go on congregational chanting. However, he also did chant 16 rounds, and he also was chanting whilst he was cooking. He wasn't doing it. But the point is, the mercy of Krishna isn't to do, Prabhupada may have said one thing in one place, if you become free of sex life, you're already 50% self-realized or something. If you're a brahmachari, 50%, 100% more chance. He said many things in different places. You only have to be 70% pure. All sorts of things we hear. But the point, we don't take it like that. It's not a mechanical thing. It's the mercy of the spiritual master. But we know for sure Lord Chaitanya and our spiritual masters in our line have emphasized over and over again, chant the holy names of Krishna. Lord Chaitanya said, Kirtaniya Sada Hari, always chant. But, it's not just by chanting. You can chant day and night. We just heard that. Bahujama Kariyari Shavana Kirtana Tabutana Paya Krishna Pari Prema Dana. As long as offenses are there, and offenses don't just mean, what we read as the 10 offenses. Primarily, it means that we're still attached to material sense gratification, or we still have this idea of liberation and personal concepts. These are the main blockages. So we can chant all day long. But if we still got the wrong attitude, it's attitude that counts. It's the surrendered attitude to Guru and Gauranga. That's the key. And so if they ask us to chant all day long, we chant all day long. If they ask us to, dig the garden, we'll dig the garden. Whatever, that's the mercy. It's not like a mechanical thing, But in general, the Yuga Dharma is the chanting of the holy name of Krishna, which is required. Now, the second part of that, can we meditate on the qualities of Lord Krishna? I don't know if you can. I find it difficult to meditate on myself. If you're lucky, you might be able to meditate on them. Yeah, Prabhupada, in some places, he said, all you do is you just hear the sound of Krishna's name. And by hearing the sound, then the form, the pastimes, the qualities, all will manifest. However, in other places, he says it is good that you are thinking of the pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan, or maybe Parikrama of Giriraj or something. Especially when we got kinds of minds like mine, which wander all over whatever my idea of the universe is during japa. So to at least, and it's not impossible, by the way. Something, well, I can't do both. You can do. It's not both. It's actually a meditation. It's like when we sit in front of the deities and chant our japa. You're seeing the deities and you're hearing the name of the deity. Krishna, Hare Krishna. Both go on simultaneously. Or you're looking at a picture, etc. But the general primary directive of Prabhupada was to just try to hear the name. Everything else will come. But it may not be, and that will come naturally to a pure devotee. It is attraction to certain pastimes of the Lord in Vrindavan or wherever will come to their hearts. And the neophyte stage sometimes is certainly better than thinking of the pastimes of this material world, that's for sure. At least the mind is becoming purified by remembering something from a pure source, pure pastimes of the Lord from a pure devotee. But the first thing is we try to hear the sound of Krishna's name. And then we have just a quick question. Okay, no problem, a quick one. We have heard that we are able to remember Krishna through his pastimes. Would you kindly elaborate on this? We remember Krishna through his pastimes. That's a quick question, kind of a simple question, really. It's natural. What does it mean to remember Krishna? Krishna is not separated from his associates. When we remember the pure devotees, it's also understood we're remembering Krishna because they're never separated. The pastimes of Krishna are non-different than Krishna himself. They're just, what we can say, it's like in our own lives, you know, you don't just exist. You have various nature, various pastimes, various relationships, various qualities, etc. They all add up to that's you. You know, you don't say that's you, but who is you? You are, you know, you are this, you are that, you do this, you do that, you're like this, you're like that. So with Krishna also, all of his pastimes and qualities and relationships, they're just manifestations of him. His pleasure, potency, maybe arranging the various apparent backdrops and arrangements being made to fulfill Krishna's will, but they're really not different than Krishna. So when we remember his pastimes, it's non-different than remembering Krishna. For sure, it is Krishna in a different ways, transformational, whatever you want to call it, but it is Krishna himself. So it's so potent and purifying, remembering his past. And there are so many pastimes. If you're just trying to think of Krishna, what does it mean without pastimes? You can try to just meditate on the form or the name, but the pastimes are unlimited. There's some Prabhupada one time said, why Krishna performs so many pastimes when he comes to this world? And then Prabhupada was asked a question, and Prabhupada said, so that we have so many things to think about regarding Krishna. Do we have something to think about? Otherwise, we'll simply think of material pastimes. Or we'll become impersonalists if we want to, you know, cut off from that. So we have no positive. So many pastimes of Krishna to talk about, to remember. Mother Yasoda was constantly talking about the pastimes of Krishna. It's a nature. So when you love somebody, you like to hear all about them. What they do, what they wear, where they go, what they like, everything. So a devotee who loves Krishna wants to hear everything and never ending. Hearing about Krishna and his wonderful glories, his pastimes, his friends, everything. There's no end to it. So Krishna's pastimes are unlimited. And we all have a part in those pastimes by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya if we want. He's giving us an opportunity. We just have to purify our hearts and get the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. Next one. Sometimes I get complacent. Oh man, it's not bad, only sometimes. Complacent in devotional service and slip back in my old ways. What are some of the tips for staying fixed in devotional service? Well, that's great. And we say the same thing when we're chanting. Sometimes my mind wanders, and say, no, always my mind wanders. We're always complacent in the real sense of the term. There's degrees of more or less complacent. How do we trace that? Well, desire is the root of everything. Why we're in the material world is because of desire. It's not because of some kind of, you know, unfortunately, you know, we took the wrong journey, took the wrong route. You could say that, but it's actually our desire. Why we're here is not that Krishna suddenly picked up a whole bunch of Titasta Shakti Jivas and threw them in the material world. Hard luck, boys. You know, you're on the wrong side of my fingers. You know, it's not like that. It's by desire that we are where we are. So if we genuinely desire, Krishna will reciprocate with one's genuine desire. And of course, there's a degree of genuine desire there. Just to ask such a question, is that it means that we do have some sincere desire to become less complacent and more, you know, fixed in devotional service. So the general way that happens is by association. I mean, in terms of, let's say, how we manifest if that desire is there, we'll search out the association which would be favorable to awaken our pure devotional service, association of those who are not complacent. Now that can also include not just the, you could say, the physical association, which is very, very valuable, but any kind of association, even reading. The great Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes it by hearing the pastimes of great devotees, like Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Haridas Thakur. He names those three, but it could be any great devotees. One develops determination, confidence, satisfaction, all the qualities we need to, you know, push forward in our devotional service. By hearing Srila Prabhupada, many devotees will say that when they read his Lilamrita, Lila Amrita is also unlimited, but whatever we have there in a Lila Amrita, for instance, one becomes inspired, one becomes determined again, by whatever, by joining in a kirtan, listening to a class. There may be different individuals may have different causes of becoming inspired or awakening their attraction towards Krishna or towards devotional service. But association is the main cause of that. Coupled with, of course, we have to have the desire. And we can also pray that Krishna can bestow upon a sincere devotee this good fortune. There are many prayers may become fixed in devotional service, etc. Bhaktivinoda Thakur's songs are very wonderful in this regard, many of them. You can see, and there's so many songs. We only have a few in the general songbook, but there many of them deal with this, like complacency or lethargy or whatever, envy, greed, lust, anger, so many qualities which cover, bad qualities which cover the pure consciousness of the soul. When we sing the songs of Bhaktivinoda Thakur with feeling, it really does. It helps awaken the real characteristic of the soul, at least the desire to become free of these false coverings of the soul due to our material contamination or material attachments, to become purified. Humility, taking shelter. Humility is the key. In one sense, you could say the key factor all along. You sometimes say faith. You could look at it in different ways, but this humbleness of accepting oneself as being in a fallen condition, you become one becomes an eligible candidate for the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. And Lord Chaitanya's mercy comes through instructions as well as just through associations. And if we take that in mercy, we take those instructions, and despite all obstacles on the path, we apply those instructions in our life. In this way, by the mercy of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu, one can become fixed. We're not fixed because our heart has so many other dirty things in it. So the Sankirtan, the chanting of the holy name, constant chanting or regular chanting of the holy name, cleanses all these dirty things which are blocking us from being fixed in our devotion towards Krishna. The anarthas, we have no attraction to chanting. By constantly chanting or chanting as much as we can, particularly in association with devotees, then our hearts can become cleansed by that association of Krishna and the devotees, and the clouds, the coverings in our heart can be removed, Chetudarpanam Arjanam, so the natural attraction to Krishna starts to awaken. Next one. I jumped one there, the one disappeared off the screen. There we go. How do we understand the position of Gadadhar Pandit in Mayapur? He was also very mellow by nature there as well. Did Lord Chaitanya take up Radharani's Manabhava, leaving the mellow mood of Chandravali? And Mayapur would Gadadhar Pandit be known as an expansion of Jagannath Puri Chandravali? Yeah, well, everything's an expansion. All of the various gopis, even Chandravali is an expansion of Radharani. It's just another different mood of the internal potency, you could say, in the form of Chandravali. All the expansions are there to ever increase the various loving emotions of Krishna and Lord Chaitanya. And they expand in various ways, even maybe more than one expansion is found of Radharani. Gadadhar Pandit is also an aspect of Radharani, not in the same mood by any means as the mood of others, like the mood of Jagadananda Pandit. But Radharani herself, then she expands as various gopis and Chandravali and the various gopis, just different aspects of that internal potency. So the same thing happens in Gaur Lila. They may not be in female forms as far as we can see. And Lord Chaitanya, who is in the mood of Radharani, is also not in a female form as far as we can see. His form appears male. And so do most of his associates. One or two exceptions, of course, are there in terms of his consorts, his mother, Sikhi Matita's sister, Madhavi, and so on. But generally, we only hear a few associates who are in female forms. Almost every time they're in a male form. So appropriately, they're manifesting a particular behavior, a particular aspect of either Radharani's mana or which means her kind of jealous anger or her passivity in terms of her expansion of Chandravali or other gopis, etc., who appear. And the unique thing we see also in Lord Chaitanya's pastime, just like Ramananda Roy, that different personalities appear to be Ramananda Roy. 3, 4, at least 4 are mentioned are Ramananda Roy. It means the different moods of those internal associates manifest at different times in the Lord's pastimes, even apparently in the same form as we see it, like Ramananda Roy or Haridas Thakur or others, who appear to be different people at different times. It's that particular nature, the internal energy, which manifests in different ways at different times, according to the need, according to the Lord's will. Sometimes it's Lalita Devi, sometimes Vishaka, sometimes Arjuna. There's a tractor passing by right now. Tractor Sura. You have the tractors, they've taken over from the bulls, what to do. So, yeah, and we see that in the conversation with Arjuna, with Ramananda Roy and Lord Chaitanya and Kovur. How in the beginning is Arjuna. Arjuna is asking the same, basically the conversation is Bhagavad Gita. And then they pass over that, and then comes, different levels, the coward boy Arjuna, then the intimacy of the gopis, and further and further and further. They go on, the different moods are there manifested according to the will of the Lord. Yeah, so whether it's Navadvip or whether it's Puri, Gadadhar Pandit is acting in a way which is for the pleasure of the Lord. Different aspects of that internal potency. And we have here, I don't know how we understand the position of Gadadhar Pandit is something which one may realize in due course of time. We only repeat some things we hear. But the realization comes when we're in that mood of only love for Krishna, nothing else. Simply existing for the pleasure of Krishna. And it may be necessarily understandable by the mercy of Guru and Gauranga. Lord Chaitanya is more merciful than Krishna. Sometimes I've heard Srila Prabhupada saying, Lord Nityanananda is very merciful. I heard many pastimes of Srila Prabhupada when a devotee commits mistakes. He said, I am not as strict as Lord Chaitanya, so it seems he's more merciful. What sense they are merciful, I humbly request you. Well, Prabhupada would usually give the example of Jagai Madai. How in the pastime of Jagai Madai, Lord Chaitanya wanted to kill Jagai Madai. But Lord Nityananda forbade him, calls us mercy of Lord Nityananda. And there are statements where Prabhupada says, you pray to Krishna, please help me, forgive me, whatever it is. If that doesn't work, you pray to Radha. If that doesn't work, you pray to this one, that one. And ultimately, if that doesn't work, you pray to me. Prabhupada, the representative of Lord Nityananda is the most merciful of all. But the mercy is the same. It's just accessible. It's, who is the most merciful? Ultimately, what can you say? Krishna. He manifests, same person manifests, even the Guru's mercy is nothing but a manifestation of Krishna's mercy, personified as Srimati Radharani, as someone said, Radharani is the compassionate nature of Krishna, personified. And to get rid of that personification of the mercy of Krishna in the form of Radharani, should say Lord Chaitanya, one has to get the mercy of Lord Nityananda. I heard Charles sing about this many times. And that's manifest in the form of the Guru. So you can't jump over that connection because all the mercy is there by serving Guru. Everything is there. Guru Nishta is the key, in a sense, of love of Godhead. It is not that the Guru is anything different. I mean, the Guru is simply a transparent media for the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, mercy of Radha Krishna. It's not like some alternative personality who kind of decides. He's not a guru if he's nothing but a transparent media of Lord Chaitanya's mercy. He's not a guru. He's some person who has some charisma or some karmic good karma, some mundane knowledge of some kind. But a guru is one who is just a transparent media for that mercy to shine down. And that's the way the Lord's mercy shines. You can't go straight to Krishna. If the guru tells us You do this for Krishna, you do that for Krishna, fine. That's the mercy of Krishna coming through the Guru. And then you say, I'm worshipping the deity, but actually it's nothing but the mercy of the Guru, which is the mercy of Krishna. We again and again sing this, Yasya Prasada, Bhagavat Prasada, and so on. Your mercy is all that I am made of. So many statements are there by our acharyas. We have nothing but the mercy of the spiritual master, nothing else. That's our only hope, the only good fortune we have to attract Krishna. And we've already attracted, I mean, we may not think like that, but the mere fact that we have the association of a pure devotee of the Lord is good fortune. By their association, and, again, everything is reciprocal as they surrender unto me. So in the relationship of the spiritual master, we surrender to the mercy of Krishna coming through Guru, then Krishna rewards. Simple as that. So it's not different. Simultaneous one and different, you could say, but it's the same mercy coming down, but that's just the way we access it. Just like electricity, you don't plug into the powerhouse, or an appliance will explode. We plug into the electric socket on the wall, but it's connected to the power. It's the same energy. And you could say the mercy of the powerhouse coming through the socket, and you put your plug in there and you get energy. So we plug in. Prabhupada said we have to plug into the immediate representative of the disciplic succession, his own words. And that way the mercy, the access, it doesn't mean that we're going to take it either. But at least it gives us a chance to receive that mercy of Krishna coming that way. That's how Krishna gives his mercy, through this line. Next one. Thank you. The only good thing. You missed something here. The only good thing about when I do slip back into my old ways is that when I come running back to Krishna, I relish it much more. Yeah, well, this is another form of Krishna's mercy. So in one sense, we're very sad in our hearts when we see others slipping away, maybe we slip away or whatever it is. You could say it's something, it's sad. And naturally, devotees are sad. Bhaktisiddhanta would cry, Prabhupada would cry when his disciples, he heard some disciple had fallen away. He said, this will happen on the battlefield, some soldiers fall away. But they don't really fall away, even if it looks like it's just temporary, sleep. We fall asleep, you could say, from devotional service. But when we wake up, you're back again. And as you say, if you learned some lessons, then you come back maybe with even better attitude. It's just changing the attitude. Krishna sometimes makes these arrangements almost. We shouldn't say, it's Krishna's arrangement. Exactly, it's our own choice. But at the same time, Krishna's hand continues to work on that devotee when they go away from practicing devotional service, slip into their old habits, whatever it may be. Krishna's hand's still working. And we see that many times. One godbrother of mine told me one time, he really fell away from Krishna consciousness and got into things which, really mundane. Wherever he went, he said, he couldn't forget Krishna. He'd go to some concert and all of a sudden, bow down, Mr. Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, would come on, would be the music that they're all playing. And he goes somewhere else and somebody else has said, hey, I went to the Hare Krishnas last night. Pretty far out. Have you ever heard of the Hare Krishnas? And he was like an initiated devotee of Prabhupada. And they didn't know that. But everywhere he went, he said, it's like Krishna was constantly, and everything he tried to do in the material world didn't work, even though previously he was a very qualified person. Just didn't make it. And eventually he came back to completely engaging in devotional service. It's like Krishna doesn't let go. We may try to let go. Prabhupada said one time, someone said, what about those who leave ISKCON, Prabhupada? Prabhupada said, no one leaves. He said, that may be your initiative, but my initiative is you never leave. He said, I never let you leave. He's like, we may leave, just like a child may leave home. But he may leave home, but as far as the parents are concerned, they never really, in their heart of hearts, they don't let him go. He's always there. Oh, pure devotees don't let him go. One takes shelter of pure devotee of the Lord. One takes shelter of Krishna's service, some way or another. That's why one's always considered we're already on the way back to Godhead. It's just a matter of time. Go through a few, deviations here and there sometimes. But basically speaking, once material life has come to an end. So we sometimes do like that. We slip down a bit, we can get up a bit. Like a child learning to walk, Prabhupada said, they fall down, sometimes they get up and they do a bit better next time. They try, they learn something, they do a bit better. And then eventually they can walk without falling down. So we keep trying, don't give up. Keep trying. We try to avoid by good association and prayer and so on. And try to practice nicely our sadhana. But sometimes Kali Yuga is very strong, we're very weak. It's easy to get captured by bad association in our mind or outside our minds and slip away. Or we see something with our imperfect senses. These devotees they're not good. This doesn't work. They're all doing nonsense. I can see it. And sometimes, when we're not quite ready yet, Krishna puts those thoughts in our minds or allows them to be there. And we have to learn our lesson a little bit. And you realize that we're not the all-seeing, perfect visionary. We have to look at what Krishna's doing there. He's showing us our own hearts. Look at one's own heart. Don't poke your nose into everyone else's heart. Look at our own heart and see those same dirty things in our own heart. So gradually we wake up and learn prayers and even statements by Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, give us tremendous strength in these situations. Reminders of how we should look at it when the tendency to fall or to go back into our old ways comes up. We can read certain prayers of the acharyas, or statements of the acharyas to remind us. Okay, that seems to be it. And we're right on time. Hare Krishna, if anyone's still with us. Jai Prabhupada. So, Hare Krishna. So Radhastami is coming up on Wednesday. Take full advantage of this. Lots of kirtan. Find out what Radharani likes. Offer Radharani what she likes, not just what we like. And you can hear pastimes from Krishna book. Maybe that's the best thing to start. There aren't so many of Radharani in the Krishna book because Shukadeva Goswami is a bit hesitant to even infer her name because, of course, he's eternal associate of Radharani, her personal parrot. And he's not very keen on mentioning because he knew he wouldn't be able to continue with the subject matter if he thought about Radharani. So he only indirectly mentions her there. But there are other places you can look in Chaitanya Charitamrita. But otherwise, just chant Hare Krishna. Hear the lecture of Prabhupada on Radhastami. When Prabhupada would give lectures on Radhastami, I was listening to one the other day. Maybe the lecture was 35, 40 minutes long. About 30 minutes, Prabhupada hardly mentioned Radharani, just at the beginning. And then at the end, 5 minutes or more, he mentioned Radharani. So today is the appearance day of Radharani, the internal, loving, compassionate aspect of Krishna. Today we pray for Radharani's mercy. He'd say very much. And then he sang the song, Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Gaite. Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Gaite. Gokula Tarune Mandala Mohite. You can put it on the screen if you've got enough time. If you've got time. I wasn't going to sing it, but as we started, we may as well sing it. Gokula Tarune Mandala Mohite. Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Gaite. Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Gaite. Radharati Radhanaveshe Hari Nisputa Vrindavi Neshe Radharati Radhanaveshe Hari Nisputa Vrindavi Neshe Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Gaite. Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Gaite. Anudari Navashashileke Lalita Saki Guna Ramita Vishake Shavanudari Navashashileke Lalita Saki Guna Ramita Vishake Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Gaite. Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Gaite.
Saruram Kurumai, Sarudavarite, Sanakatana Sanavani Chakarite, Saruram Kurumai, Sarudavarite, Sanakatana Sanavani Chakarite, Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Jayate, Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Jayate, Gokula Tarune Mandala Mohite, Gokula Tarune Mandala Mohite, Gokula Tarune Mandala Mohite, Gokula Tarune Mandala Mohite, Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Jayate, Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Jayate, Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Jayate, Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Jayate. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Go Premanande, Shri Rastami Ki Jai, coming very soon. So on Wednesday, I think, is it the same everywhere? Wednesday, Janmastami, Radhastami? That's Vastikananda, is it Wednesday there?
In New Zealand it is.
I think most places Wednesday is Radhastami. So Wednesday night, I mean, if we're able to, I'll let you know for sure, but most likely we'll have a program. And on Wednesday night, we'll show a PowerPoint presentation. I think we can do it online on Zoom. Is that right, Rasika?
Can do. Yes, Maharaj.
Right?
Yeah.
We'll probably have a PowerPoint presentation about Srimati Radharani. So if you want to join us on Wednesday, you might have a program in your own home or wherever you are, I don't know. But if you want to join us on Wednesday, and we do have it, please do so. And we're intending to show a PowerPoint presentation during the session on Wednesday, so we can absorb ourselves in the compassionate mood of the Lord and take up that compassionate mood. If we want Radharani's mercy, we also have to act compassionately by spreading the Sankirtan movement. If we want her mercy, that is her mercy, that we have the opportunity to participate in the Sankirtan, spreading the holy name in its various forms, spreading Krishna's mercy in the form of prasadam, books, the holy name, whatever way, many ways can be there, bringing people to the shelter of Krishna. Okay, thank you all very much. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. We can put everybody on and say Hare Bol.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Malaysia, England, France, Germany, and Australia,
Hare
Fiji,
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Philippines,
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
many places. All over the world. Amazing.
Gauranga.
Ireland. Oh, I don't think but so many places are there. Hare Krishna. So wonderful. Radharani's mercy is everywhere.
wherever you are, Radharani is there. We just manifesting your mercy through Srila Prabhupada and the followers of Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Hare Bol. Hare Krishna, everyone. All glories to Srila
Haribol.
Prabhupada.
Krishna Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. Hare Bol. Jai Bol.